cold at the touch, dead in the eyes, no signs of life no more. I put your love under the knife. Leave me to die here all alone. No signs of life no more, no. A crying dove may never fly. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, 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 oh. Just black and white. Come on. Just let me go, it's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Just let me go, it's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, 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 oh. Just black and white. Black and white.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sim Racers World TV for the Sunday GT Masters, brought to you by SimracerCoin, the penultimate round of action. We hope it's not the unlucky round 13 here at Suzuka Legendary Track. I'm joined by a legendary man indeed. It's Chaz Draycott virtually besides me here in the virtual commentary booth indeed. Just minutes away from the start of qualifying. Apologies for the slight delay on getting things going. We had a bit of an issue with the stream not wanting to start the correct event, which is why some of you might have been stuck in the wrong chat. We do apologize. We do all hope all these small issues are indeed aligned. And with that said, well, let's dive into the action, Chess. We have a lot to talk about here tonight. We have a championship fight that's going to get one step closer to being decided here tonight at Suzuka.
It is indeed, Hasse. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here with the SimracerCoin Sunday GT3 Masters. Really can't wait to see how tonight unfolds. And of course, as massive Formula One fans ourselves, living through the best era of Formula One, if you ask me, the early to mid 90s, and of course the late 90s as well, maybe even early 2000s, let's just call it the decade. We have both seen a lot of championships get wrapped up and have very important things happen at this circuit. So I'm really looking forward to seeing whether we get any of those implications tonight. The two guys to watch out for in the championship are teammates as well, Peter Plasto and, of course, Mr. Forrest, who is currently fastest during this practice session. He's going to be hoping to keep that going in his Lamborghini over the course of the evening. But as a circuit in GT3 cars, Suzuka, I mean, to be fair, it's difficult in any car, but in GT3s especially, it's not an easy place to get around because, let's face it, slippery Japanese tarmac, it's rather legendary.
It's very legendary indeed. And while it is certainly upping the difficulty when you have less downforce, the slower speeds and lower dependency on downforce also sort of makes it a bit more of a racer's track and not so much as a driver's track maybe, and that's something I think speaks for it being a good race here tonight. I'm just quickly gonna touch upon the championship standings. We have Peter Plastow now leading after his victory last time out in Barcelona. He's got 276 points to his name. He's 7 points clear of Matthew Forrest. And then Martin de Jong, still an outside contender, though a lot has to go his way for him to end up running away with the title. But it's still between those three. Nick McLaughlin 4th with Koen Mulder 5th. Timothy van der Broek in 6th. And Nicolas Cocato, Cody Steeg, Nuno Vinagre, Nils Cornelis, and Alfredo Tricarici. With that said, of course, odd-numbered round means it's an open setup. I think a lot of the drivers will indeed appreciate that fact here at Suzuka. It's not always a nice place to have to race on a fixed setup if it's something that doesn't quite suit your driving style.
Yeah, that's it. And GT3 cars are difficult to get used to as well. I mean, you've got the ABS, you've got the traction control as well. A lot of these aids can sometimes hinder how you want the car to behave. I must admit, years ago when I made the change in a certain championship to go from GT3 cars to GTE, it makes a massive difference when you've suddenly got no ABS. And if you do want to lock up that inside tyre when you're turning in and just manage it as the corner goes, it's actually a wonderful feeling because you feel like you've got a lot more rotation. The car doesn't just straight line on the brakes. The traction control doesn't hold you back. But you may see a number of these drivers running without those aids tonight. You can, of course, turn them down in cars like this, but there we go. Nuno Vinagre there just having a bit of an issue as you see the car sort of floats around the corner as the ABS tries to kick in, and then he tries to get on the gas to carry the slide, and the throttle says, no, not on your life, mate. You're going in that wall. It's also great to see this big old beefy Ford GT still being used on iRacing as well. You've got to love the V8 roar this thing makes. It's a proper old school car, but it's still competitive in the world of sim racing, which is nice to see.
Absolutely so. It's the Spaceballs, the Ford, and on the rear wing it says ludicrous speed. It's very, very good indeed. Anyway, we have 15 minutes of qualifying coming up right about now, and I am predicting that we'll see an absolute river of cars that are flowing out from the pit lane to get that clear track space for qualifying. And as always, it's 45 minutes of racing. It's that tried, tested, classic, old-school VRS format. The sprint format, that is, of course. So 45 minutes of racing, 50% fuel cap, so expect to see short fuel pit stops around the 30-minute marker as always. Welcome to those of you who join in chat here early on. Nice to have you along, of course. It is our great pleasure indeed. A good question, Sean. Yeah, who's the favorite to win? Let's go over the favorites. There are just a few, I think, in my book here. Matthew Forrest definitely being one of them. He's been so strong on pace for the entirety of the season and has been hard to touch. But he has, though, made a few mistakes on his own, and it's really come to cost him in the end. Meanwhile, his teammate and now championship leading rival in the picture here in his black and blue Ferrari. No, it's not a Backstreet Boys album, but it could have been. He's been a little bit more consistent, and he's been finding his form throughout the season, especially after the new Ferrari Evo model was added to the series when it was released. And then, of course, there is Martin de Jong, whom we really shouldn't count out. If the two VRC drivers, the virtual racing compound drivers at the head of the standings, squabble too hard, Martin de Jong is certainly going to be there in his Audi R8 to pick up the pieces. So indeed, those three drivers will be the ones to watch, at least in terms of the championship fight. And I think usually, Chaz, if you're fighting for the championship win and the overall title in a series like this, you're going to be prone to just putting that little bit extra practice in. You're going to be that little bit extra motivated. That's going to keep you, I think at least, if you're in a competitive car, if you've got the skills, if you find yourself at the top of the standings, you've probably got the skills. And it's just often a question of motivation and putting in the time to really perfect your lines in practice here.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you've got to stay sharp. You've got to keep yourself fine-tuned and on the ball, ready to take on whatever comes your way. And to be honest, the fact that we've got these two VRC drivers fighting for the championship at the moment in different cars, and the same as well, of course, with Martin de Jong, he's in an Audi. Sure, the Audi and the Lamborghini underneath, basically the same car, both running the same 5.2-litre V10 engine. But either way, the fact that they are different cars means that they've got different strengths and weaknesses at different circuits, and it keeps the championship interesting. Here's Bruno Guedes in the GTZ Bulls car, the gorgeous, big, burly 6.3-litre V8 Mercedes-AMG GT3. One of my very, very favourite cars. I love the new iteration of this car as well. Not even new anymore, nearly. It's 2 years old now, but still gorgeous. Although Bruno nearly greets it with the wall, manages to keep it together. It's a tricky circuit, like we've said, and we will continue to say over the whole night. It's a very tricky circuit to get right. Quite a long lap here as well for these guys, so I'm intrigued to see who can keep it together. It's not easy to put a lap together here either, to be fair, Hasse. There's a lot of corners that require a lot of pace, a lot of very precise turning. You can easily go faster through one corner, say turn one or even snake up the hill. You can easily nail that, but then maybe get it wrong into the Degners or into the hairpin, and never then get quite the same run out of each of those corners on the following lap. It's a tough old little place to crack.
It's a tough old place to crack indeed, and I'll be happy to talk you through it. If anyone should be in doubt here, Matthew Forrest, we're on board into turn one, late break-in, carrying the speed through one and into turn two. Is trying for that late apex, and then using all of the road, of course, into the S's legendary part. The first one, the quickest, and then these next ones are all about rhythm, precision, and patience. Because if you go in too quickly, you're gonna ruin your run throughout the entire series of corners. Now here, Dunlop, the left-hander, feels quick, but you really gotta watch out for just that crest. So easy to find yourself getting thrown out towards the gravel on the right-hand side. Then the two Degners, the first one being much quicker than you anticipate, then hard braking for the second one. Trying to get the good run here, using all of the AstroTurf underneath the figure eight bridge, through the right-hand kink and into the hairpin. Another crucial point to get the exit right, and look at Matthew Forrest really meeting the apex there. 200R in a GT3. I think it's flat, but it'll be... it is. It's easily flat indeed, just like in the Formula 1 cars of old as well. And then into the spoon curves, which ideally would be taken like one long corner just straighten it out in the middle. Go for the late apex as well. Watch out for the bump on the exit. And then it's a good long run down the back straight down towards 180R, one of the most famous corners around. And that, I think, isn't going to be entirely flat, is it? Nope, there's a lift. Oh, brave stuff there from Matthew Forrest. And then braking for the Casio Triangle, as it was indeed called back in the day. I don't think it carries that name anymore, Chaz. But I think it does. Oh, that's nice. That's good to hear. It sticks for me as well. Across the line we are, and that is a lap of Suzuka.
And very fittingly, Matthew Forrest pulls it over right at the end, knows he's done the job. Thank you very much, Hasse, for taking us through that fantastic description of this wonderful circuit, which does have some interesting corner names, to be fair. I must admit, first corner is just called first corner. The hairpin is just called hairpin. Back straight is just called backstretch. And the final corner, as you come out of the chicane, is just called last curve. So they didn't get too creative with some of the names, but as you mentioned there, the Casio Triangle, still named as such. 130R really annoys me because it's actually a 130L. Instead of 130R, but
it's
way,
not.
It's
not. Oh, but I'll tell you what. It's not. It's because it has a 130-degree radius. The same with 200R. It's the radius of the turn.
Oh well, I'll shut up then. Either way, you've got Dunlop, like you said, going up the hill. Very, very tricky part of the circuit to get right. But you know, these guys, as we've discussed, having open setups and fixed setups in different races really does open up the balance of performance that iRacing puts into these cars. Oh, that really opens it up. Niels Cornelis getting caught out slightly there by the Mercedes that went around. I believe that was Stephen Arell, which is DIS Racing. Oh, it wobbles one way, then the other on the Astro. And again, coming back to Matthew Forrest, as he was going through 130R, he did clip a bit of the Astro, and he kept the car together. I actually did a GT3 league here years ago, 2 years ago now, and I was in the Audi R8, which at the time really didn't like lift-off oversteer. Well, I'd say it didn't like it. It was a massive fan of lift-off oversteer because it had plenty of it. Tried to kill me every single time I went through 130R. And in the 3 races we did that night, I crashed in all 3 at 130R and wrote the car off. So, not too many fond memories of Suzuka for me in GT3 cars. We see Chris Pio, the Apex Tech machine, the number 5 Ford GT. He has his teammate Matt Sisela in the other Ford GT as well. He is just ahead of him at the moment. 8th and 9th, these two are currently in qualifying. I do love, though, Hasse, how this is such an international league. We've got drivers from Argentina, Germany, the United States, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Great Britain. We also have drivers from Italy further down the order as well. Sandro Orsini and Giambattista Giacetti, which is one of the best racing driver names I have ever heard in my life. We also have Pedro Marimon Cladera as well, the Spanish driver, joining us. So a very international championship, some phenomenal circuits, and let's face it, when it comes to GT racing, some of the very best categories in the world managed to filter their way into GT3 racing, best manufacturers as well, and the cars look the part in GT3 racing, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They really do. There's such a truth to it. There's the Gabbiano Racing Team Porsche of Sandro Orsini. Certainly a good-looking machine as well. I'm gonna look through. I want to see if the fast and aged BMW is on it. You would imagine so. They have a bit of cheese on the car, of course. Here, fast and aged. But I don't think they're here tonight, which is a bit of a shame. We do like looking at the liveries, Chaz, and that for me is indeed one of the best. But not on display tonight, I'm afraid. Nuno Vinagre here has done a very good job in his Porsche 911. So far here in qualifying, second on the grid. Coming into the final 5 minutes here, it's looking good for him for a good grid start. But then again, you'd probably expect the 911 GT3R to be strong around here at Suzuka.
Yeah, it's a very stable car, the 911 GT3R. Once you get it dialed in, it really is... Oh, well, there you go. there's Nuno saying, no, it's not, Chaz, look. Look through Dunlop has a moment. We've currently got a pattern going on, though, with a VRC car, then GTZ, then Virtual Racing Compound, then GTZ, then Virtual Racing Compound once again. So I think we might see a battle between those two teams during this race. There is the very ugly BMW M4 GT3 with Eric Luke at the wheel.
I'm not
on these VRC cars. I'm not saying the livery is ugly, by the way.
No, that's not it. But the
Livery's
car
wonderful.
itself, it grows on me, Chaz. It grows on me.
Really?
Yeah, I find the nostrils fine. They're it's there's just a big air intake, and racing cars have that. If we discuss the road car though, that's where it really gets hideous for me. Because once you take away all the flared arches and the big fenders and the wings and the huge air inlets in the bonnet and stuff like that, they just seem out of place. They seem too big, which they in turn are. Of course, I do agree they are too big. It would have been better looking had they just downsized them a little bit. But indeed, I think with the race car here with the GT3 machine, it does look all right. Doesn't look completely out of place, at least.
I'm gonna say this. Look at the back of it when it goes past and tell me it doesn't look like the Lexus.
I can't. I cannot tell you that it doesn't
looks just like the Lexus RCF GT3 at the back.
It looks just like the Lexus from behind. It's true. I've never thought about the fact that if you put the two cars aside, you'd have to look at the badge to really tell them apart here. That's actually quite true, yeah.
It's a beefy bit of kit, though, I must admit. I do love how evil it is, but it's just the grille. The grille is really decisive for a lot of people, whether they like it or not. But here is a car that's been on iRacing for a long time now, and has been in GT3 racing for a long time. Currently has its third iteration in the real world, which is the Audi R8 Lms. Beautiful sounding, beautiful looking car. I mean, it was pretty even in this first iteration. It's been through the second version, and now it's in the, I think it's called the Ultra or something now. There's a million and one names for all of these cars, but it's the Ultra Evo or something like that, I think it is. But still, the original R8 with its 5.2 litre V10 engine, sounding amazing. But it can be a real piggy to get used to. A lot of the weight obviously at the back of this car with the engine being there. Very short nose on this machine, similar to the Lamborghini, almost the same chassis. But it really is great to see some drivers getting this car right. And look at that. Martin de Jong has certainly got it right to the top of the times with 157.779.
Yeah, he was already at the top, but he massively improved. He's now ahead of this gentleman, Matthew Forrest, by over 0.3 of a second. So Matthew Forrest, not only does he have to improve, he has to improve quite considerably. The best of drivers here getting it underneath 2 minutes.
Yeah, we currently have everybody in the top 14 less than 2 minutes. Stephen Orell is the first car just over the 2 minute mark with a 2 minutes .45. He's then half a second quicker than Stuart Jacklin, who then has another half a second over Robert van den Heuvel, who is 201.4. But we've got a number of the drivers at the top of the standings right now, Hasse, on their outlaps as well. So potentially some improvements here before the line. Oh, sorry, before the time runs out at least. Matthews had a moment, but this is just his outlap though, so he's still got a good minute and 15 seconds to get across the line. I'm not sure if Martin de Jong is going to be able to make it across the line to get another lap in, you know. It does say he's on an outlap, but he might just be using it for extra practice here.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's gonna be a tight squeeze for Martin to make it. But he might not need it though, as he's our provisional pole sitter. Matthew Forrest is really gonna want it. Pete Plastow this season, qualifying hasn't really been his strong point so far, but he's really shown his both pace and racecraft in the races as well. Expect him to do the same. And look out for that turn 1-2 combination, Chaz, because we've seen so many times it can be so inviting to try something to gain around, but there's a bit of a bottleneck in the track. It narrows in. It certainly does tighten into turn 2, and it's just not that easy to get around, and you often find yourself in a sort of Senna Prost-esque situation here. And if that's what we're going to see between the championship contenders here in turn 1, then we're really in for a show, aren't we? Let's hope it's not going to get that extreme.
No, fingers crossed. Oh, it was the Porsche in the wall there, just gone back to the pit lane. But yeah, like you say, the the 1-2 section, oh, Sandro Orsini just clipping the grass and on the way, and that was almost like Nigel Mansell's accident there in his Williams years and years ago.
That's actually true.
The 1-2 section is very difficult because if you do get it down the inside there, you really put yourself under pressure to not run wide on the brakes. And as I mentioned before, with the anti-lock brakes on these cars, you really can just straight line it if you stamp on the brakes and you worry a bit too much about it. Here is one of the best names on the grid as well. Mariano Alfredo Lozate in the Virtua Racing car. Great looking machine as well for the Argentinian driver. He currently is 15th on the grid. This is an outlap for him. And he's done a 1:59.91 at the moment. Giambattista Giachetti just goes a bit quicker behind him, goes into 16th place. Mariano just misses out, though. And it did say it was an outlap a moment ago. And yes, I believe it was. So that's not going to do anything for his position. Skims past the stationary Porsche on the straight. But unless Martin de Jong can do anything serious now, actually, to be fair, it's going to have to be down to this man, Koen Mulder, in the AF Corsa liveried Ferrari, to actually get the job done, because everyone above him except Martin de Jong is now in the pits and has concluded their session.
Indeed, I think he's going to do so as well. He's going to pull off. That's Martin de Jong, who... Is that going to be a counting lap? Well, that's the question. I would imagine them to break into the pits. Koen Mulder, who hasn't quite had the season like he had last year, when he ran away with the overall title.
I was going to say, is the number one worn because he is the reigning champion?
Yes, indeed it is.
That's good. I like that. I love it when drivers wear the number of the position they finished last season. I know series that have that as a rule, and I am massively for that rule, because as a spectator and a commentator, you know, you see cars 1 through to 5 or 1 through to 10, and you think, based on that rule, they're the ones to watch. You know, they're the people that were the top 10 last year. Like, that's why you should watch them. BTCC used to do it, and I still think that Series today should do it as well. But obviously with the drivers and their identities and their custom numbers and their branding and so on, it's not so simple anymore. You know, Valentino Rossi never won the championship and wore a number 1 the following year. He stayed with his legendary 46, which we all know and love. I think it was only Casey Stoner that's really ever done that, and he was not terrible, but in comparison, pretty awful the following year when he started wearing number 1. He blamed that for the bad luck, actually, instead of his usual number 27.
Well, there you have it. Some drivers are indeed superstitious, and let's see if the writing on the wall tonight is going to be anything for the number 1. Here is the grid order. Indeed, Martin de Jong for Rebel Racing on pole position, with Matthew Forrest joining him on row 1. Then Nuno Vinagre and Pete Plasto, then Bruno Guedes and Eric Luke. Savino Milido is joined by Koen Mulder there on the 4th row of cars, with Nils Cornelis and Timothy van der Broek on the 5th row. Matt Sittler is joined by Chris Roberts on row 6. Row 7 is going to be Chris Pio with Dirk Reski and Mariano Lozate, with Giambattista Giachetti on row 8. Then Petro Marimon Cladera and Stephen Orell, Stuart Jacklin, Robert van den Heuvel, Sandro Orsini, Orkun Kolak the Turk, and then Cody Steek rounding off the field last, but very much not least. And with that said, we're about to get some racing underway here. 45 minutes of good action here at Suzuka, and we're going to be all the wiser on the outcome of this season and of the championship standings altogether when the checkered flag draws out here in 45 minutes time, which is going to be an exciting one, especially for me. I've followed this series for 2 years almost now straight, and it's certainly interesting to see this second season of action come to a conclusion. It's a long season of racing with a lot of races that are relatively spread out. And in the end, that means we race for the best part of the year here in the Sunday GT Masters, which is sort of nice because you come to miss it once you have a break of 3 weeks or a month every now and then, and
yeah,
I sort of like that.
Yeah, definitely. I you know, while participation can sometimes be an issue in sim racing with some of the series that do go on for longer, I really do like the series that maybe have one race a month or one race every 3 weeks, and they make the season last a year. I really do love that because it builds up the hype and it keeps the suspense there of what's going to happen in the championship. You know, there's longer for drivers to think about it week on week. What are they going to be doing next time out? How many people are going to get practicing? Who's not going to get that? But either way, it's certainly a fantastic setup for this championship. Keeps us wondering as well, Hasse. But for me right now, Martin de Jong looks like the man to beat. Matthew Forrest was fastest in practice. Let's see what they got.
Let us indeed see what's going to happen as the pace car swings off and Martin de Jong goes early indeed. Very early run from the Dutchman, who gets a great run on everybody. Nuno Vinagre swings on the inside here of Matthew Forrest down towards turn 1. That's going to be a move indeed. And I think Pete Plastows managed to lose a position there onto Bruno Guedes, and we'll see if they all can make it cleanly through turn 1 here. So it seems. Which is always nice to see here at Suzuka. It's the first of the pitfalls that's been avoided. Many more to come here. De Jong. Oh, look at Vinagre through the S's, and he's through on Matthew Forrest. Good stuff indeed.
Yeah, puts Forrest down a position that could be important for the championship come the end, because now there's only 2 places between Forrest and Plasto. And now again, he's lost another position. Now Bruno Guedes has gone through as well. So Forrest now right in front of his teammate Pete Plasto. That's the 2 championship protagonists, with Martin de Jong out in front ahead of them at the minute. Koen Mulder has lost a few places off the start. That was Nuno Vinagre going very sideways, trying to go for the race lead. Running wide out of the second Degner. Getting the back end sideways over the grass as well. Side by side, the 2 championship protagonists behind, nearly making contact. Matthew Forrest shoving Pete Plasto out onto the grass. Didn't quite give him all the room he needed. Understandable light flashing there from Pete Plasto. A little bit angry at that one. I was just going to say, Koen Mulder's lost the most positions off the start. 3 places lost, and look at that, Forrest wide. Oh, and comes straight back on in front of Plasto. He is determined to push hard early on, but he's not having the opening lap he would have wanted here, Hasse.
Very much so. It's not been perfect at all for any of the 2. And meanwhile, Martin de Jong is out ahead. And if it stays like this, you have to wonder, the Dutchman is going to be in a very, very good position. There is the chance that these 2 is going to fight it out so hard with one another. They sort of forget that there is a third man to the storyline, to the saga, if you will, out ahead after grabbing pole position. And a beautiful lap 1 indeed. Down.
Great shot of them all running back down towards us then, towards turn 1. It's a beautiful thing to see. This is a moment further back. Eric Luke just getting caught up with the number 12 machine there of Savino Melillo. And Stuart Jacqueline, Robert Van den Heuvel's having problems. Eric Luke right now also going down the order. There's a few of them, I think, that have had some sort of problem at the start. This is what happened to Robert. Oh, the Mercedes behind just tries to duck out, and he gets a little clip and pitched slightly sideways. He's very lucky that didn't go around there, because that McLaren is notoriously difficult to save. But there is the view back from Martin de Jong, and he is currently holding this race lead. There's a lot of changing in the midfield, though. Niels Cornelis and Koen Mulder just swapping places, but they're right behind Chris Roberts, Hasse.
Yeah, indeed. Chris Roberts in the Porsche. There's Cornelis. Someone's off on the left-hand side. There's Mulder, indeed. It's gotten passed by Chris Pio in the Ford GT.
Love that thing.
And
Absolutely love it.
Matt Sisler's gained 5 places. Ludicrous speed indeed. We break for nobody. Spaceballs the Ford coming through. I gotta say, this is one of my absolute favorite cars indeed. EJ Fuel. Now let's go Team Ford. Yes, indeed. I'm all with you on that one. It takes a certain amount of courage, Chaz, to choose a car.
Yeah.
That's let's be honest, at least in most iterations, in most BOPs, it's hard to really get it to be competitive. It's such an old machine, and it's so great to see it racing still here, the Ford GT.
Well, over lockdown, Tom Brooks and I took part in Jimmy Broadbent's 3 hours of Get This Bread, or whatever it was called, at Imola, and we thought it was going to be a proper meme of a race, and they were allowing people to pick the Ford, so we thought, well, why not? We'll pick the Ford, put it in a dazzling livery, and we'll drive the nuts off the thing. Well, it turns out everybody else took the race seriously, and we were the only Ford out there, and we were so dog slow, it was unbelievable. Now, Nuno Vinagre's just lost a bunch of positions. I think he might have had a slowdown penalty out of the final chicane. He's suddenly down in 5th place. That puts Forrest and Plasto 3rd and 4th, still right together. And yeah, look, he's dragging the brakes a bit there, saying, sorry, boys, I done messed up. But right now, he's got a bit of work to do to come back through. But yeah, the Ford, still great to see it getting used. And to be honest, he's getting used well as well. These guys are up in the top 10, or at least Matt is at the moment. Chris Pio is down in 16th place, but still pushing hard against some of these modern-day GT3 machines, like this strange-sounding BMW, the Stage 1 racing car of Timothy van der Broek. Oh, he van der Broek a bit too late there, didn't he, to be honest, on his way to the Degners, but keeps it together. That Ford, it's interesting, the gear ratios on that car, it's fantastic in slow-speed corners because it's got amazing turning, but it just wobbles its way around. It's very strange. You can see the back end kicking out there. Sisler just rotating those rear tyres a little bit more than the Ford would like. This gorgeous Stage 1 car, though, closing right in. That BMW is very menacing, even against the big Ford.
Yo, we've had a problem as well for the other Ford. It's been tapped there. Chris Pio having to go straight through the chicane. Picks up the slowdown, I'm afraid, but nothing more. Oh, and that's
Roberts.
Yeah, indeed, on Van der Broek.
I think Van der Broek maybe went for a move on Sisler into Spoon Curve. He's been compromised, and now Roberts has said, right then, freebie. Cheers, boys. Oh, he's on the grass onto 130. Oh, that made me jump. That was certainly sketchy.
Yeah, very much indeed here. Bruno Guedes was not really being able to keep up with Martin de Jong up ahead. And now through's going to come Matthew Forrest. And just how close is Pete Plastow to all of this? Might he be able to follow through? No, he's not taking those kind of chances here. Oh, and almost contact between Guedes and Matthew Forrest.
That would make anyone follow through.
Yeah.
Real shame, though, that, because at the end of the day, Matthew was trying to do everything he could to stay to the inside. Bruno was trying to just make sure that he was still on the circuit and keeping the pressure on. And that tiny touch, he had to correct it, had to straighten up. He may have lost the one place, but he's still right in this fight now, right behind Pete Plastow.
So it's Martin de Jong, Matthew Forrest, and Pete Plastow, 1, 2, 3. It's the top 3 in the standings reversed at the moment. And Martin de Jong's gonna need a little bit more assistance, I think, from the drivers behind, or from these two. Maybe getting to some sort of calamitous situation with one another. Which, of course, we're not hoping for it, but I think Martin certainly is out ahead without wishing too ill for his competitors. But it's the only real way he'll really get back in, be in with a proper shout. As we see the month of December and the final round of the series. Van der Broek.
Love watching the different cars. Sorry, Hasse. Just making their way into Spoon Curve. The way they all behave on the brakes. Some of them moving around. Some of them looking really stable. And then comparing that to how they work on the throttle as well. You know, the Ford looks really stable on the way in, but on the way out looks really wobbly. The Porsche looks stable everywhere. The BMW looks great out of the corner, but not on the way in. They've all got these different characteristics about them and the way the drivers are pushing them. And again, it's just one of the many beauties of GT3 racing. Van der Broek has broken later than everybody else round the outside into the Casio triangle. As our friend Peter Mackay would say, that was calculated.
I'm not quite sure that was. That was wild in my opinion, Jess. But
I meant calculated because Casio make calculators.
Oh, indeed. Just a step or two ahead of me. I've done a Bellcar 24-hour race. Too many to be on that page of jokes. Don't apologize. Just know that I might not be up to speed completely here. Now, Guedes is keeping Pete Plastow honest at the moment, but the two GTZ Bulls cars, after sitting second and third, they'll be slightly annoyed with themselves, the Portuguese pairing here of Guedes and Vinagre, that they weren't able to make more of it, at least for this time being. Let's see if they can do what Jehovah's Witnesses do so well and get that foot in the door, squeeze it open, which is something that we've seen before. I don't know if the Jehovah's Witnesses do the same in the rest of the world, but it's certainly a thing here in Denmark where they put their foot in your door and you're not really able to. Yeah, you gotta really be firm and tell them to, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
but not in those words.
Oh, sorry, Bruno stamped on the brakes, got the back end out. Now he's right behind Pete Plasto. He slammed the door in his face, but Bruno stole a knock-in. He's all over him at the minute. That's a fantastic analogy. I didn't think anyone had the guts to come out with that one, but you're very right. You are very right, mate. He is knocking on the door right now. He's got his book in his hand, and he's ready to deliver the word of the Lord. Down the inside, he looks into 130R. Still nothing doing there. I'll tell you what, no supreme being can save you if you get it wrong at 130R. It takes a lot more than that and a lot more than a bit of ABS, but still, fantastic fight this inside the top 5. However, 5.5 seconds ahead of Matthew Forrest. Martin de Jong is absolutely checking out here. He's going to have an easy afternoon so long as he keeps that Audi nice and tidy.
10 minutes into the race, Chaz, and it's left to be seen who will take the role of the priest and who will take the role of the Undertaker in this battle indeed. Bruno Guedes does indeed undertake the challenge of trying to overtake Pete Plastow up ahead and maybe even Matthew Forrest as well. That'll be munchies for the man up ahead, Martin de Jong, man from the Netherlands. I'm actually not quite sure just where in the Netherlands, but we might be able to figure that out. Further down the order, by the way, Chris Roberts is still on the tail of Timothy van der Broek. So van der Broek went past on the the previous lap into the Casio triangle with a sound, sturdy move indeed. And Roberts hasn't yet been able to repay him the favor. Cody Steek is not having a great time here, is he? In his Mercedes for Rebel Racing. He goes around and wants to slide there. You just know there's no coming back.
It's like going up a half pipe in the second Degner, isn't it? If you overdo it, it just spits you out the other side, and it's one of those moments where your skateboard comes down the half pipe and hits you in the face when you've landed. It's a real kick in the teeth, to be fair, but he does carry on. He moves on after it, and it looks like there's been an issue for Matthew Forrest.
And there's a big one
and more issues.
It's a massive issue for Matthew Forrest, and he's absolutely sailing down the order here. Oh, but just about manages to keep it under control. Here comes Nils Cornelius around. He's going to get overtaken by, that is, Koen Mulder as well. And I'll do my best to see if we can figure out just what happened. Because Plastow came past, and that was in the spoon curves. He just goes off all on his own. Not enough to pick up an off track. But you gotta wonder, just overheating the tires maybe? See him off there.
The tiniest of slides, and he catches it. But it's what happened afterwards that was the strange bit. So he had his moment. He got sideways. He managed to save it, so he didn't completely spin the car. But he got going again, and then it just straight lined the next part of the corner. I'm wondering whether he had some sort of hardware issue. But here we have a look at it again. Thank you, Hasse, for getting the replay. Goes in. He's gone in too hot. The back end comes around, so he stamps on the brakes. Nice save, Sunshine. And then there, it just straightens up. There's no contact or anything.
No,
it just straightens up the wheel, doesn't he?
Yeah, it does look a little bit weird.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Yeah, indeed. He's down into 10th place now, Matthew Forrest. And it's going to be an uphill struggle to stay in contention for the championship. Still just over half an hour left to make amends for his situation here. But it's going to be a tough old one.
Yeah, because let's not forget as well that it's not him with an advantage over Pete Plastow in the championship. Pete is the one with the advantage, so if anything, he's just opening up the gap now. He's not getting rid of any sort of points advantage Matthew has. This is the man in the box seat that can make the championship fight even more into his favour right now, but he's got Bruno Guedes right behind him in the very angry-looking Mercedes AMG, and as Jakub Szymanski said in the chat, that it does actually look like one of the old-school Viper GT cars from a distance. It's got that angry, long-nosed look about it. A fantastic machine. But that Mercedes, very menacing. All GT3 cars look evil, to be fair. They've all got an amazing look about them. We've got a problem for Dirk Reski, who needs Dirk rescuing at the moment, by the look of it. He's just gone off the road. Let's see what's happened in his Porsche. He wasn't ready for this one, was he? Again, though, if you had a quid or whatever currency you have now, Hasse, if you had one of them for every time you've seen someone do that on Spoon Curve, whether it's on the way in or way out, we'd be both absolutely loaded right now, wouldn't we? As down the inside goes Guedes.
Guedes on Plastow. Plastow's going to be trying to keep it, but he just went off to the AstroTurf there, and there's no grip out there whatsoever. But he's going to try and see if he can get his nose back into the S's here, which I don't think is going to happen for Pete Plastow. And this is now going to be an exercise in keeping a cool head while battling with Bruno Guedes here. Of course, it's going to allow Martin de Jong to run away with it. That much is certain. But he wants to make sure that he doesn't make any silly mistakes here. Still staying close.
He did say in the YouTube chat at the start of this evening, don't count me out, boys. And he was not joking. He's really proving a point here, isn't he? He's absolutely flying. That sounds like the GTE car is revving that high on board with Nuno Vinagre. Really hot into the hairpin though. How did he get that stop? Flipping out. He's really driving this aggressively. It sounds phenomenal, but absolutely on it right now.
Well, that is a grand car, the 911 GT3R, one of the best additions, I think, to iRacing, GT3 racing in general. And he's not disappearing in any way. He's actually getting closer and closer to the rear end of Peter Plastow. The GT Bulls team really have something up their sleeve for this race. They've come here looking for a real result. The Mercedes and the Porsche alike. Down here now it's Chris Roberts on Fenderbrook into 130R. He's gonna get it done, and is that gonna open the door for Matt Sisler in the Ford GT? No, it's not. Nils Cornelis still with Matthew Forrest for company.
Oh, the way that Ford went through the chicane, it was like a 1,000 kilo, 500 horsepower bouncy castle the way that it just went over that curve. It was wobbling around so much. For a car that's so low to the ground, it was absolutely comical behaviour. Ludicrous speed, ludicrous suspension. Here comes Matthew Forrest, then back through it, past the Martini-branded Audi of Niels Cornelis, the Dutchman. Making his way back up Snake, up the hill. And that Lamborghini starting to look more and more potent. So now Guedes second, Plastow third. He's now got Nuno Vinagre putting the pressure on him, pushing that Porsche to its limits. And to be honest, Plastow doesn't need this right now, does he really, at this point, Hasse? Because he wants a nice, easy drive to the end of this race now to just get the championship done with one hand on the trophy already. But he's getting overtaken by people, knowing that his teammate Matthew Forrest is making his way up the order as well. This is not the situation he wants to be in.
That's exactly it. I think it's always finding that balance in between. Do you want to go for the win? Do you want to go for all the points? Or do you want to make sure that you stay ahead of your championship rival in the standings and sort of play the professor card? You know, grow a bit of a white man's afro and get a weird nose and look like Alan Prost there for a second. Because, and I think it's an exercise. It's why people revered Alan Prost so much as well, for his ability to do just that. Because while it might sound easy, while it might seem easy as well, it certainly isn't, I can tell you. I think everyone who's ever tried racing one of these things, oh my word, that's from the outside, or it's not, because it's Fenderbrook, and here comes Matthew Forrest, though, and Sisler, and they made a net code contact to one another there.
That was close.
That was closer than close, and the netcode not enough to send Sisler flying, which was great to see indeed. But, oh my word, that looked pretty hefty indeed here. Guedes, Plastow still with Vinagre for company. Vinagre just not able to get close enough to Pete Plastow to really send the move in. And as you see, I mentioned that earlier, just being a little impatient throughout the S's there, carrying too much speed into one of the corners, ruins his run for the next one, and makes it all the more difficult to keep the flow of the car running as he's coming up through Dunlop here.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits where you have to carry momentum. You know, a lot of these corners depend on the corner that precedes them. You have to get the line right, you have to carry the right speed. Otherwise, you'll overdo it for the next one, and it'll be a real mess. So a lot of these guys having to really think about how they set their moves up and how they defend from the following drivers. You can see a number of different lines into the hairpin. Nuno takes a very inside line on the brakes, doesn't let the car wash out wide, gets it stopped hard, and then plants the throttle A little bit risky on the throttle and the exit, but as I said before, the Porsche is really stable. Bruno at the moment is doing a smashing job of just guiding this trio around the circuit at the minute. You could argue that Pete Plastow isn't going to push too hard. He's not going to try and force an issue and cause any problems for himself, knowing that they will have to potentially pit at some point. They're on the throttle a lot around here, so we may see it soon. But nearly 20 minutes into this race already, Hasse. This is great fun already.
Absolutely so. It's been a brilliant one so far. As we're closing in on the halfway point of the race. That's gone quickly past, and I think we're about 10 minutes away from the pit stop window. I usually see drivers opting to go as long as possible. Martin de Jong, by the way, is sitting on a 10.5 second gap, consistently lapping in the 59s as the only car on track at the moment.
Is indeed. His best laps are 1:58.5, an absolute belter of a time, especially in race pace as well. Certainly on a mission right now, but this trio is the most intriguing one at the moment. We've got Bruno Guedes 0.4 of a second ahead of Pete Plastow, 0.4 of a second ahead of Nuno Vinagre. Then they've got a 5-second gap back to Chris Roberts, so they can fight. They can afford to have a bit of a scrap, maybe lose a bit of time collectively, and drive these cars to their limits. But I think really, thinking of the championship as we get to this latter stage right now, Pete Plastow will take this as a bit of a reserved approach. Now, we had Matthew Forrest on screen for a second there, but now Timothy van der Broek is off up Dunlop. Oh, dearie me. And is he going to hit the end of the wall? Oh. Now, that could do a lot of damage, you know, because it intertwined itself with the end of that barrier there, didn't it?
Yeah, indeed. I don't think it's as bad as it could have been, but I think that cone, though, it's a dreaded thing. Does he realize he has the cone in there? What has happened? He's jumped to the pits.
That's really strange.
I wonder.
I'm wondering whether the hit on the end of that wall, while it didn't look too badly damaged, I think it potentially could have really done a lot of internal damage, that hit on the end of the wall. It can happen in iRacing, where it doesn't look that bad on the outside, but the car is an absolute wreck. So I'm hoping for his sake that that's not the case, but that's the only thing I could think of, the only reason I would think he'd jump back to the pits. Just a note on Martin de Jong, by the way. He's that far ahead. He's already on his way to Okayama. He's absolutely checked out, hasn't he?
Yeah. Well, that's a good one. A bit of blinking for Chris Pio. That's not what we like to see. Let's hope it's not going to be too much of an issue for him here. Cladera in the Miku Mercedes. Oh, just squeezing past on Eric Luke. And he's climbed 8 places from the start of this race, so a great run for him so far from the Spaniard. Chris Roberts and Stuart Jacklin, both of them, I'm afraid, have had some sort of issue. When Matthew Forrest had gone past on Chris Roberts. Here's Stuart Jacklin. First of all, oh my word.
Whoa.
He's going to catch it, isn't he? No.
No,
he's certainly not. Yeah. Looked for a second like it was just going to continue around. Oh, and you know what? We've had another thing that we didn't catch here, which might have had a little bit more to say as Pete Plastow comes around.
Well, he'll be glad that he had that 5-second gap behind that little scrap, because, to be honest, if he didn't, he'd have to wait a long time to get moving again, or he could have been collected by somebody else. So all of a sudden now, Matthew Forrest is 1 place behind Pete Plastow again. That's how quickly things can change here. And it's been a very interesting development again for this race. Honestly, it's like an EastEnders storyline. It just never keeps changing. Never stops changing, I should say. Goes one way, then the other. And now Matthew Forrest is back in a position where it's damage limitation time now. 23.5 minutes through this race. And yet Martin de Jong is still in this race. But that car, he's certainly not going for bronze today with that livery. He's going for gold. And he's going to try and do this in very, very stylish fashion. Let's see what that lap time is as he crosses the line there. 1:58.89. That's a belter as well. 0.3 of a second off his fastest time in the race. We have Bruno Guedes coming across the line. He's coming in. Bruno's into the pits. He's one of the first guys to enter the pit lane. So getting this out of the way early. Vinagre, for context, does a 2:01.0. So insane pace by our current race leader. And the thing is, Hasse, he's doing that consistently as well, isn't he? It's not just a one-off.
No, it's true. That seems to be the race pace of the Audi up ahead. So when he said, don't write me off, guys, I think he had some things to happen in there. Really good performance in qualifying, well clear of the rest of the field. And he showed it's by no means a fluke. And he's been able to translate that into race pace here as well, on the day.
Yeah, definitely. He's absolutely flying right now. There is Nuno Vinagre still carrying on with the damage.
Well, what's going on here? Because Pete Plastow has gone through on Vinagre.
Yeah.
Vinagre's had an issue here, I think. Because that damage wasn't there before, Chaz.
Clips the grass. Oh, he got away with that. I mean, he may have quite a bit of damage on the right-hand side, but he got away with that, I have to say. That thing could have gone into the wall backwards, spun around, gone back into the middle of the road. A lot of things could have happened to that, and he's got away with that one, I'd say.
Could have been much worse. It could have been much worse indeed here. Now we're seeing Matt Sisler in the Ford GT, taking it to one of the title contenders in the form of Matthew Forrest. And if that's not great to see, Chess, I don't know what's going on in the world anymore. I'm afraid it's taken a bit of a knock at the rear end here for Sisler. I don't know what happened. But let's see if we can figure out just what that is.
He might have got clipped in the hairpin earlier on, I think. Maybe a bit of a tap there. Just the tiniest bit of contact can lift the rear end of the Ford up. So fingers crossed it's nothing too serious for him. It doesn't look that bad, to be honest. So I think he's going well at the moment, though. Last time round, his lap time a bit slower than Matthew Forrest, but we saw in practice that Matthew is easily one of the fastest guys up there. Nils Cornelis comes into the pit lane. Sisler was faster than Forrest on that lap, and look at that, Chris Pio, late as you dare on the brakes around the outside of the number 7 Mercedes, cuts his nose off and says, "Thank you very much, sunshine, I will see you in a bit." And to be honest, Pedro thinks, nah, I don't want any of that, and goes into the pits.
And here's Guedes, who does have clear track space ahead of him, and so important if you choose to take that pit stop early. And you then also have the clear track ahead to take advantage of whatever pace you can put in. Of course, no fresh tires, so there isn't really going to be much of a pace advantage to harvest. But still, it's Martin de Jong, Pete Plastow, Nuno Vinagre, and Matthew Forrest. The top 4, then Matt Sisler in 5th place, Chris Roberts, Eric Luke, Chris Pio, Bruno Guedes was the first driver to blink in terms of the pit stops. And then Rob the Lobster, the series organizer, Robert van den Heuvel. Mind you, he mentioned that nickname himself, Chaz, which is why I feel comfortable actually calling him that, I think. But Robert van den Heuvel in the fire-spinning McLaren. We've talked about the Ford GTs. I'm just as happy to see this machine racing on track as well. It's not too often that you see it, is it?
No, definitely not. It's a wonderful, wonderful car. And you know, when it first made its appearance on the scene, everyone was thinking, "Oh, flipping out, they certainly mean business here," and it really is an absolute weapon of a car for its day. And you know, oh, hello, I hear big contact. That is Nils Cornelis off the road, according to our timing screen. This happened just behind. He's trying to go around the Porsche. Oh, he's on the grass. He's lost it. He's smacked into the Porsche. That was Mariano Alfredo Lozate. And he is not going to be a happy boy with that one. Simple mistake.
Sandro Orsini, actually, but yeah.
Oh, apologies.
It's not the end of the world, is it? Neither the mistake of yours or the crash there. Could have been worse. Just so unlucky to touch the grass through that right-hand kink coming into the hairpin. So easy to do if you're trying to set yourself up for a move on the inside of the hairpin, which in turn I think is why we don't see that move happening all that often, because of that right-hand kink coming into it. It just makes it all the more difficult to actually get a safe overtake in there.
Well, that's it. It's one of those moments on the track like this, you really have to assess every single corner and the way that you set it up. Here is the battle for what was going to be second place at the time. Pete Plastow now ahead of Bruno Guedes after the pit stops. So that's important. They've only got about 15 minutes of this race left to go. Nearly half an hour completed right now. And the Mercedes has quite the gap to make back up on the Ferrari. at this point in time, but he might be in a bit more of a flow as things stand. Martin de Jong, the highest placed driver that has pitted so far.
And Vinagre is still ahead of Matthew Forrest on track. But that advantage is creeping down. Though not by that much, it seems. He did collect some damage, but just how much it's affecting him, I don't really know. And I gotta say, Matt Sisseler in the Ford GT is doing a sterling job of keeping that car competitive here. It's beautiful to see.
It really is. Keeping it nice and tidy so far. It reminds me of a Marmite tin, I'm not going to lie. But it's just the black and yellow. And again, the livery in the car is very Marmite in itself, so it's quite apt. Now, that is a car that's coming into the pits, if you ask me. A lot of them will be coming in now. They're going to be running it very close on the fuel. It's Vinagre, Forrest, and Sisseler. Roberts also in as well, which means that Martin de Jong is going to retake the race lead. He's going to inherit that one. Pete Plastow, Bruno Guedes, and Niels Cornelis, the cars following him currently. Feels painful going down a straight as fast and as long as Suzuka straight in the pit lane, doesn't it? And a bumpy one at that as well. It's almost like Snetterton. Comes to a stop. Has to wait for quite a while. And then they will all get going again. There's something I miss on race cars, which I say I miss it. I've seen a bit of it this year in my real world commentary, but cars when they're in the pit lane with their headlights flashing in certain patterns. The Hyundai i30N TCR does it a lot. A number of the TCR cars do it, but I don't know why, but I just think it's a really cool little feature just to tell people that they're definitely on the pit lane speed limit.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, and it's if it's dark, indeed, it's in the nighttime, it'll make you all the more aware of it. You're not keen enough on looking down on your dashboard. Tell you what, that's one of the worst mistakes to make, though, in an endurance race. If you're running well and you pick up a stop and go for speeding in the pit lane because you didn't quite get the pit limiter activated in time or pushed the button too early coming out the pits or whatever the problem might have been. Oh, that is just such a tough one to swallow when that happens. Just wanted to mention Matt Sisseler got the better of Matty Forrest on the pit stops there, so he's up into 4th place in the Ford GT.
Yeah, he's going well, is Sisseler, to be honest. He's on a bit of a sizzler. He's really making some strong progress. It's currently Audi, Ferrari, Mercedes, Ford, Lamborghini, Porsche. So the top 6 are all different manufacturers as well. Really shows you the balance of performance. Also, we have... I nearly got it right. We've got 4 different nationalities in the top 4. We've got a Dutchman in the form of Martin de Jong, Pete Plastow, the Englishman, then Bruno Guedes from Portugal, Matt Sisseler, the American, and then another Englishman in Matt Forrest and Nuno Vinagre, another Portuguese driver. Only 3 Ferraris in the race. Savino Melillo is the next one in 10th place, and then Koen Mulder, who is way down the order in 21st place, is the other. And I don't think Koen is actually racing currently, but this battle's starting to look a bit more spicy now, Hasse. A little bit going on here between these guys. Wondering whether we see any more developments and any big moves coming up this way.
I think there is gonna be a move coming from Matthew Forrest, because he cannot allow himself to hang out here in 5th place. He needs to get on through. He needs to get that result. Just 12 minutes of racing left. And that's it, 45 minutes. You might be thinking, well, that sounds like plenty time to get things settled and stuff. But the fact of the matter is that they're just quickly over. And if you really... It's not a lot of time to get into the groove. If you're not in it and really on it dialed from lap 1, you're going to be struggling here. Look at Vinagre here. Is on the tail again of Matthew Forrest in a Porsche that's carrying a bit of damage. Mind you, it's the same Matthew Forrest who in some of the races this season has been on a level. Has just been untouchable here. Sisseler pulls off. Might he have collected himself a slowdown? I think so. And Vinagre aggressive as ever into the hairpin. That's great to see.
Yeah, he's not given up at all, has he? He's trying everything he can at the moment, really throwing this car into every corner, making himself look really dangerous here behind Matthew Forrest. A lot of hard work going into this right now by Nuno. We've not got too long of this race left to go, you know. We've got just over 10 minutes of this race. It's quite incredible, to be honest, how quickly 45 minute goes when you're having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also been an interesting one with plenty of stuff happening throughout. And also an interesting one in terms of the championship battle that is indeed developing. Even though it is looking very good for Pete Plastow. Oh, Nuno Vinagre got closer than close to the rear end of Matty Forrest there. I'm not sure Matthew Forrest really appreciated that in any way. You have to send it with the Porsche. It's not the fastest car in a straight line. You can really hammer it on the brakes though, and Nuno Vinagre, they are maybe even a tad too hard, a tad too late, almost making contact with Matthew Forrest in front, but managing not to do so, and that's the most important part in the end.
Love watching these things try and balance their way snake up the hill. Interesting as well that Nuno Vinagre had that damage and has not had it repaired either. No fast repair available here by the look of it. He's still carrying the battle scars on the right rear corner of that Porsche 911 GT3R. One of the newest additions to the iRacing family of road racing machines. Lovely look back though from Matthew Forrest and the fantastic soundtrack of that 5.2 litre V10 Lamborghini. Up the hill we go to the corner known just as Hairpin. Simply, it's just called Hairpin. But look, there's that inside line again from Nuno. Ooh, a little bit of a wobble on the way in from Forrest there. Maybe feeling a little bit of the pressure here right now. Late into this race, the tyres won't be at their optimum performance right now. So this is the part, Hasse, where it depends how drivers have saved tyres and it depends how good drivers are at adapting to tyres falling off a cliff late on.
Yeah, indeed. And it also a point with not driving the tires too hard. If you overheat them, you're really gonna suffer. You're not really gonna have the time to take 2 or 3 laps at a slower pace to let them cool down. And suspecting that's what we might have seen from the Lambo earlier in the race as well. We do know it's a twitchy car to drive. I've never really had the pleasure of driving it myself, although I've heard that it's not that easy to master. Great exit though here from Vinagre. The Portuguese got a good run of slipstream. Look at the straight line speed of the Lambo. The Porsche not really able to close up until it's just that little bit too late. It's gonna be a move there on the inside. Nope. That's the Porsche Piers as well. The gap between Pete Plastow and Martin de Jong, by the way, I shall tell you, it's 16.3 seconds in the favor of Martin de Jong, who has been cruising so far out ahead on his own this race. Beautiful drive so far from the Dutchman here.
Yeah, by the time he crosses the line and everybody's got back to the pits, he'll already have his media pass and his accreditation to get in at Okayama. He'll be absolutely done and dusted, mate. He is really, really nailing this tonight. It's been a standout performance for me. To be honest, this battle from second all the way down to sixth, it's just been fantastic to watch. You know, Sisler's been great to come up through the order from where he was. That was close by Nuno Vinagre there. But these two GTZ Bull cars and the VRC cars fighting with each other inside the top 5 has been absolutely awesome fun to watch. But as you see there, the Plastow and Guedes gap has opened up, which means Pete Plastow will potentially go into the final round of the championship, if it stays this way, with a bit more of a comfortable margin over this man, Matthew Forrest.
And at the same time, Martin de Jong might just be closing a bit of the gap as well. It's 30 points for a win. I think it's 27 points for second place. So only 3 points to be gained there for Martin de Jong and a win over second place. Which, in turn, I think Pete Plastow is going to be pretty happy with his position as it stands. If he can keep that second place till the checkered flag, it's only going to be about 6 more minutes of racing here, is it? Before we're done. It's flown by.
It really has. And to be honest, if you think about the championship, it's, Chris Pio has had a long, long slide. You'd almost call it a pirouette. No, pirouette. Anyway. To be honest, when you think about the championship fight with Pete Plastow right now, the one position behind Martin de Jong, it doesn't matter in the championship how close you were or how far away you were from the driver that you're fighting with. You know, it's all about the points themselves, and it's only the positions that matter, not the gaps. So maybe a little bit gutting right now for Martin de Jong that he's been so dominant here and he'll only gain a couple of points over Peter in the championship. But either way, it's been a really strong performance by the number 79 Revell Racing driver. Nuno Vinagre, one of the most exciting drivers on track though for me this evening, Hasse. Just over 5 minutes left now. Like you said, this has been a real belter of a race. Let's see what these guys can do in the closing few laps.
Indeed, Matt Sissler, I'm afraid, is finding himself falling down through the order, and I don't know what's the deal with his car here. I'd reckon, I'd reckon what might have happened. He had a very short pit stop of only 10 seconds in the booth against 14 for many of the other cars.
Yeah.
So he's having to lift off heavily here to make it on the fuel, I think, to the line. That might be his problem.
Yeah, he's having to just coast this thing right now. I mean, it's a big, massive, chunky, old-school V8 as well, so it's probably not the best on fuel, really. But, of course, these race cars are all very similar in their consumption and fuel tank sizes to make sure it's all fair game. But, yeah, in theoretical terms, big, massive V8 Ford probably going to break down at some point. But right now, it's Matt Sissler's race that is breaking down, unfortunately, and not going the way he would like. Matt Forrest, 2 places behind Pete Plastow now. He will need a phenomenal final round at Okayama to get the job done. But can we just say, though, what a great recovery from that moment earlier on, Hasse. It shows you how quickly it can go from one different direction to the other. But he's done a good job at coming back from it.
Yeah, indeed. He really has. And it's been great to see as well. Here is Dirk Reski, who's also come up through the field after a few sketchy moments. He's got sponsorship from Pfaff, which makes sewing machines. To be in doubt, I haven't seen that ever on a race car, especially on sim racing. I wasn't expecting sim racing and sewing to be 2 hobbies that would go grand together, but hey ho, you never know.
Yeah,
until you see it.
Fabricated that deal.
And then you do.
Sorry, that was desperate.
That wasn't so bad at all.
Do you think Dirk was ready for that one?
He better have been.
Or was it a rescue move?
I was about to say, anyway. I was not sure if he was willing to risk it.
I like this game. It's fun. Fix or replace daily. That's what FORD in Ford stands for, says Sean Nicholson. You are very right, mate. I had a Fiesta for a while, and it was fix or repair flipping daily. Honestly. Oh well. I've got a BMW now, it's even worse. Anyway, Matthew Forrest still 4th place though. It has been a strong recovery drive, but the top 3 at the moment have been 3 of the very best guys out there on track tonight. Really consistent, really, really fast the whole time. And Martin de Jong, what a guy. He's going to probably have 2 more laps left, I'd say.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. He's got about 2 minutes and 10 seconds. That is indeed going to be 1 more lap after this one to complete. Going to be the white flag when he crosses the line. And he can allow himself the luxury of cruising around here for the last few laps, enjoying it. It's been the perfect race for Martin de Jong. Pole position, taking the start in a very, very confident manner as well, as he just went early. Nobody was really awake for it, and he got a bit of a gap on that instance. He's just built on that ever since. Been brilliant. Guedes here for GTZ Bulls, looking very good for a podium as well. He's almost 4 seconds clear of Matty Forrest, and another Matty Sissler here is into the pits. So indeed it was the fuel.
Yeah, he's had to pull it in just to make sure that he can make it to the end. That's a real shame because, like you said before, it was an amazing drive through the field, but now languishing outside of the top 10 into the lower half of the field as well, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's a shame. I would have loved to see a Ford GT finish in the top 5 today. It would have been a grand story. enough for us to ditch one of the podium finishers, pull him in for an interview at the end. But it's sadly it doesn't look like it's gonna happen. The closest they're gonna get for Apex Tech is seemingly Chris Pio, currently sitting in 10th place, though he might risk this man coming up and snatching that away from him at the very, very end of things here. There's gonna be one more lap for Reski here to make some kind of move, and 1.7 seconds. He really needs to get his move on if he's to make that work.
Martin de Jong slowed down quite a bit here. You know, he's losing a lot of time, but like you said before, he can just chill towards the end of the race. As Sandro Orsini has spun it around on the way through the Degners. It's not somewhere that is rare to spin, let's say it that way. But right now, your race leader, Martin de Jong, he really is chilling. He's short shifting that thing, you know. I think he might be short on fuel. Either that or he is just chilling. But, I mean, last time I looked at the timing screen, he was 13 seconds clear. It's now less than 12 seconds, and that's been the first sector. He's not going to lose the lead if he carries on at this speed, but I think he might be concerned about fuel right now. And
yeah.
I am too, for his sake.
Yeah, when seeing someone going around like this, it is cause for concern, isn't it?
Oh, although...
Yeah, was that a splutter?
Smack the revs up.
Was that a splutter before that? Did you see when on an upshift, the car looked like it sort of cut out for a second as the weight shifted back and forth? Under acceleration.
Sure. I think he just absolutely planted the throttle all of a sudden, you know, because he seemed to realise he's going to make it on the fuel, and he just absolutely nailed the throttle to the floor. And suddenly he's all the way up through the revs again. Listen as he goes through.
Yeah, but he's still holding off. That's not flat out. That's not flat out. That's not full throttle. He's still losing time to Pete Plastow as well, though it's 8 seconds. So he can practically coast it in from here and still make it. And there it is. Checker flag is out for Martin de Jong. Short on fuel or not, Chaz Draycott is going to take the win here, Martin de Jong. And close the gap coming into the final round. Beautiful stuff indeed. Though for Pete Plastow, he's going to be in pole position to take his first Sunday GT Masters title come next month. Indeed, Bruno Coedes for GT Set Bulls gets that third place ahead of Matty Forrest and then Nuno Vinagre. Great race for GT Set Bulls as well, 3rd and 5th. And great to see other teams that are coming up and really breaking the monopoly of virtual racing compound. We've had races where it's been VRC 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th as well.
Wow. That's
certainly not the case here today. But Martin de Jong from Rebel Racing takes another grand win. Really also showing that his late season run of form has been very, very strong indeed.
Yeah, it has. It's been great to watch. Really great to watch. I have caught the broadcasts, and Martin has been more and more consistent every single time. And that race was a proof, a point to be proven for the dominance that he has in his back pocket at certain circuits. So I'm intrigued to see what sort of fight he can take to the end of the season, but that was a mega, mega performance. Like you say, short on fuel or not, he made it to the end. He's still flat out now on this cooldown lap, but great, great drive by Martin de Jong. Pete Plastow, strong 2nd place. That's important for his championship. Bruno Guedes as well. Great drive in 3rd. Matthew Forrest will be thinking, what if after all of that? There you go. That's how you do it. Through the old school pits. Nicely done, Martin. That was accurate as anything. I like that. Big fan of that. But yeah, phenomenal action once again here at this point, Hasse. Great fun to be a part of this broadcast. And we just wait for the final few cars to cross the line now. I believe Cody Steeg is going to be the last one to round us out.
Yeah. Indeed, Cody Steeg as he comes across the line, and that should give us the results. There they are on screen for you all to see. Martin de Jong picks up another race win in his 79 Audi R8 ahead of Pete Plastow, Bruno Guedes, Matthew Forrest, and Nuno Vinagre. That rounds up the top 5. Chris Roberts 6th ahead of Eric Luke, Savino Melillo, Nils Cornelis, and Chris Pio. Then it's Pedro Marimon Cladera, Matt Sisler, Robert van den Heuvel, and Stuart Jackling with the Resk himself in 15th place ahead of Cody Steek, Orkun Kolak, then Giambattista Giacchetti. And I need to scroll the results to tell you anymore. Sandro Orsini, Timothy Vanderbroek in 20th place. Then Mariano Lozate, Cohen Mulder, and I'm afraid Stephen Orrell in the vegan Mercedes. Not finding much luck here today. But what a race indeed. And with that said, Chaz, I hope that we get drivers flowing into the waiting room so we can drag them in here screaming and shouting and hopefully get some of those nice interviews going.
Yeah, indeed. It's always good to speak to drivers after a race like this, and I think we've had a lot to watch in terms of these manoeuvres and all the little battles that we had going on, especially near the front end of the field. It was absolutely mega to watch that. But Martin de Jong, we didn't watch too much of him because he just absolutely disappeared. And to be honest, I think that he's going to be in a very sort of positive and controlled mindset right now. I wouldn't expect him to be coming in here and absolutely like screaming and shouting, but I think he's had a perfect night, you could say. Pole position, disappeared from the start. His championship rivals both had a bit of a struggle partway through the race, and he's got the job done.
Absolutely so. And with that said, Chaz, it's time for you indeed to have a chat with our race winner. Here is Chaz Draycott and Martin de Jong.
Martin, great to have you in the booth with us, mate. That was a very, very solid performance right there. Was it as controlled in the car as it looked like it was outside? How was your mental state during that one?
Hi, Chaz. Yeah, thank you very much. Besides the first lap, it was actually all quite controlled. In the practice, I was already checking my race pace and trying to be as consistent as possible. And in the end, only the first lap that was like really, really close. I mean, I think I got lucky there that I could somewhat keep it under control when it went off. But for the rest, yeah, it was more about controlling the pace. And in the end, my tires were still completely gone.
Right. We did wonder whether it was the fuel at the end or whether there was any other issues, because we did see you sort of short shifting and rolling off the throttle a little bit earlier. Was there any fuel shortage or anything like that, or was it just a case of making sure you got the car home safe?
Getting the car home safe, and I also wanted to do an extra lap and take the other pits entry on the back straight. So that was actually why I also didn't overtake. I think it was, Chris Pio or I'm not sure. So I just let off, and I had something like, let's finish the race and keep it like that.
Well, it was certainly fun to watch, mate. We did catch it at the end of the broadcast as well, so you can go back and see how that looked from there. You absolutely nailed it as well, I must say. It was very, very, very tidy. We've just seen the off that you had actually in the opening lap. We didn't even realise that had happened because you lost so little time from it. We noticed that Nuno had a little go at you coming out of the Degners, but I didn't even realise that you'd gone off. That's how under the radar it was. So very, very intriguing to see that there was only the one tiny chink in the armour for that race, and that was the time it happened. But for the rest of it, an amazing controlled drive, Martin. Final question though, obviously Okayama next time out. Are you confident going there, or is it a bit of an unknown at the moment for you?
I know the circuit. I like the circuit. I only don't have a clue how the Audi will perform there. I assume it will be quite okay again on the fixed setup. But yeah, for sure I'm going to try the same as I did now, because that's the only the only thing I can do to get second, or fingers crossed. I don't hope it for Pete, but that Pete has some really bad luck. But in the end I did what I can do and put the pressure on Pete and Matthew, and I'm going to try to do the same at Okayama.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on then, mate. Thank you very much, Martin, for joining us. And just before we let you go, do you want to give anybody a quick shout out while you're here?
Big shout out again to you guys for the great commentary and the stream.
Thank you.
I always enjoy watching it back. And also great thanks to Robert, of course, for hosting the series, and for all the other competitors for competing and giving a great show.
They certainly do, mate. Well, nicely said, Martin. Thank you very much for joining us, buddy, and we look forward to seeing how you get on at Okayama in the final.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Lovely stuff there to speak to our race winner, Martin de Jong there, Hasse. Very controlled as expected, but there was that little moment at the start. Like I said, we didn't actually see that at the time, so there's the one little tiny inkling that we had all race that he wasn't invincible, but for the rest of the time he was absolutely on it, wasn't he?
Absolutely so. It was a faultless drive from Martin de Jong, and the times I've spoken to Martin in some of the races where he has made some small mistakes here and there that might have been costing even just a few positions here and there, or maybe just maybe just those small situations. He really ironed that out tonight, and it was a very, very smooth drive indeed.
Certainly was, and we of course have one more interview lined up for you. We will bring in the man that ended up finishing second, right behind Martin in terms of championship points, as close as he could have got. Bit of a distance in terms of the gap in the race though, but Pete Plastow, you had one hell of a race there, mate. It was all going on around you. How did that feel?
Yeah, it was pretty mental, especially the first half. Cars going off left, right and centre in front of me, and I was managing to worm my way through.
And in the Ferrari, that's not an easy thing to do. Obviously, rear-engined and mid-engine cars, usually with a lot of the weight at the rear end, they like to have that pendulum effect about them. Did it feel that stable round here tonight at Suzuka? Because it's famously slippery.
Yeah, it felt pretty good. That first sector is always a little bit dodgy. And I had a little slip up at the hairpin. But other than that, it felt pretty good. I just had to keep the tyres cool. I think Bruno, he was wearing his tyres out when I was behind him. He was sliding an awful lot. So I just bided my time for that and managed to jump in the pits, luckily.
Yeah, we thought at one point that you may have sort of, not backed off necessarily, but like you say, just bided your time, just assessed the situation, the drivers around you, and then just played a really nice controlled game from that point onwards, and obviously it rewarded you with second place. But what was the main thing that you sort of consciously had to do to keep the tyres cool here? Was it a case of just how much lock you're putting on, or how hard you're pushing it into a corner? What was the plan there?
Just be smooth. Try and limit the wheel spin, and drifting around that turn one, for instance, is a bit of a nightmare, braking and turning and all that. Just trying to keep it really smooth. That was my plan. I let Bruno go up the inside into turn one because I could tell he was getting close, and I really didn't want to get knocked out of the race. So I let him go. I just stayed in his draft for a bit and just monitored him, and I managed to jump in again in the pits, which was ideal. If not, it would have happened on track, hopefully.
Well, that's it. You know, if you can do it in the pits, it's a lot easier and a lot less risky than having to go for a move on circuit and potentially affecting your championship. Now, the main question, of course, mate, one more round to go at Okayama. How confident are you about wrapping up the title there? Because, again, it's a slippery tarmac Japanese circuit. Not the easiest place to overtake either, really, despite how wide it is. Do you feel confident going into it?
Matt and Martin are so quick, it's unbelievable, and I'm very rarely on pace with them. I tend to just get lucky when they make mistakes. So I'm just going to have to do the best I can, damage limitation, and see what I come away with. Those two, though, Martin today was just on fire, and Matt would have been, but he had a few issues with VR, I believe. So.
Right, I see. Now that might explain the issue of where he went straight on at Spoon Curve, so thank you for enlightening us on that. But either way, a fantastic performance from you, Pete. Really controlled, nicely done, and we look forward to seeing how you get on at Okayama. Do you want to give anybody a quick shout out while you're
here? Just the VRC team, but great bunch of lads, and they support me all the time, so that's good. Martin, great race, and Robert for organising the league, as always. It's such a fun league, it's great fun, so cheers.
Lovely stuff. Well, great to speak to you, Pete. Thank you very much for joining us, mate, and we look forward to seeing you next time round.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers. Well, there you go, Hasse. Potential, not outgoing champion, that's when someone's lost the championship. Potential new champion, Pete Plastow there. Very, very controlled again. These guys are super chilled after this, and I love that. That just shows how sort of controlled their drives are and how they don't lose their heads over it. I think it's going to be a really interesting final race, you know, because it could go any way if either of them or any of the three have some sort of issue any point in the race. 45 minutes is a long time when it comes to motor racing.
Indeed, I'll be sitting there doing a bit of maths beforehand to make sure that I know if this guy finishes there and this guy finishes higher, then, you know, like having the different situations in before it's going to be really exciting come Okayama. And it's true as well what you say, these drivers have raced against each other a lot and for a long time. Most of them have raced together for almost 2 years in this series now. So in that sense, they know each other quite well, and I also think that just helps with. They're getting experienced in the sense that they know each other, they know the cars, they know the tracks, and it shows as well in the racing at the head of the field especially. It's been grand. Another great race tonight. It's been great having you along for it as well, Chaz. Thank you so much for joining in on the fun here. Thanks to SimracerCoin for the support and sponsorship of the series, and of course to the series organizers as well, Robert Vandenheuvel and the rest of the bunch. Here on Sim Racers World TV, I've been Hasse Rømer, joined by Chaz Draycott. It's been a grand pleasure having you all along. Just a quick note that we will not be coming back for NASCAR tomorrow night, I'm afraid, since we do not have the drivers' numbers to back it up. So that's a bit of a sad end to the season, but it's the reality we have to deal with nonetheless, so we apologize for any inconveniences. And to those of you who were maybe looking forward to that Monday night NASCAR race, we will, however, be back with the legends that are Chaz Draycott and Peter Mackay in one same room. That's 2 Simye Award nominees, 1 Simye Award winner. It's 2 24 hours of Nürburgring real-life commentators that get together to commentate on the Porsche Club of Great Britain here on Wednesdays. We do have the SRW Formula 3 series on Thursday as well. And we've got the Sunday Drivers MX5 series coming up in minutes here on the channel as well, if I'm very much not mistaken. So plenty of stuff to catch here on Sim Racers World TV. So from Hasse and Chaz, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.